Hey guys, so today I'm going to be doing a tutorial of how to do this specific drawing. And of course this is a drawing of Tom Brady, the quarterback for the Buccaneers, in their new red jerseys that they're going to be wearing this year. And this video is sort of more of a tutorial and a step-by-step guide of how to do a drawing like this in my specific style. So if you're into that thing, if you'd like to just see how I draw, how I make decisions, then this might be something that you'd be interested in. So first thing here I'm doing is just laying out a guideline of the underdrawing, just using a regular old plain mechanical pencil, nothing fancy, nothing special. And just doing the underdrawing, just laying out where the basic elements are going to go. And yeah, like I said, I'm using a plain old mechanical pencil, and that's one thing that's really important, especially if you're just starting out drawing or in art, is that you really don't need any fancy tools to get started. Any old pencil, will do, or just whatever tools you have. You can pretty much get away with using just about anything. There's a lot of fancy tools out there on the internet for you to buy, spend a lot of money on. And, perhaps if you're advanced, if you're professional, depending on what you're doing, a lot of those tools might make sense. But especially if you're just getting started or you're just doing art as a hobby, there's really no point in spending a bunch of money on tools like that. Like I said, this is just a regular plain old mechanical pencil. Probably costs like 30 cents or something, like a pack of 5 for a buck or something like that. But it doesn't matter, it's all about the skill. It's all about, the technique that you use. The tools very rarely come into play. Maybe if you're doing like painting or something, then I think the quality of the paint that you're using would be pretty significant. But, for doing drawing and stuff like that, just use whatever you can find. Just use a plain old pencil that you can buy at the store, like I said, for less than $1. But yeah, here I'm just doing all the underdrawing, and the point of this is to basically get all the proportions and get everything accurate before you go into inking. Because obviously once you go into inking, all your marks are final. You can't undo them. But when you're in this drawing phase, this is your chance to try to lay everything out, figure it out, make mistakes, and edit it and change your mistakes as you go. And you see here I'm laying out the face mask. One thing I've found in doing these drawings of football players is that the face mask is like one of the most important things, and super easy to get it wrong. If the lines are not parallel, if the curves are not subtle and not accurate, then the face mask can look very wonky. If you look especially at some of my earlier drawings, some of my older videos, you can see definitely sometimes I didn't always get the face mask right, and you can definitely notice that it looks off. So definitely, if you're trying to draw a football player, getting the face mask right is definitely very important. So now I'm starting the inking phase here, and I'm using a Pigma Micron, and it's a 05, and basically it's just an ink pen that's a pretty fine tip, and I'm using this to basically outline everything in the drawing. And this video here has been sped up about 5 times normal speed, just so that this isn't like a 3-hour long video, but just sort of outlining the basic outline of everything in the drawing. And my style, it's kind of similar to a comic book style, and I normally have a lot of variations of thick and thin lines, and I use that for various purposes, to create depth, to create emphasis. But the first thing I do is I just outline everything in just this one uniform line weight, and this way I'm basically taking all the stuff I scribbled out in the in the pencil stage, and now I'm transferring it over to the permanent ink stage. And Doing it this way, I found it's pretty useful because, like I said, I'm getting everything over to ink, but then I'm also leaving it so I can still make some edits and make some minor changes in the future. I'm like 95% locked in to where the lines are, but there's still a little bit of wiggle room after I'm done with this stage, as opposed to just going in with like a really thick pen and or a brush pen and just using that right off the bat. I found that if I do the thin pen first and then the thick brush pen afterwards, like I said, it gives me a little bit of wiggle room so I can sort of change some things as I go. Because sometimes you have unless your underdrawing is just like absolutely perfect, there's some things that look slightly different compared to your underdrawing. I could do an underdrawing that's totally perfect, but it would probably take an hour, to get all the lines exactly perfect. Whereas the way I do it probably takes about 15-20 minutes, depending on how detailed the drawing is. And so it's still a little bit loose. There's still a little bit of wiggle room and room for interpretation in the underdrawing. So by doing it this way with the thin marker, like I said, it gives me more chances to make decisions as I go. And here I'm just outlining the numbers and filling in some of the details. And doing some of the details in the face. And definitely the face, very similar to the face mask. It's another area where if you just do a few things just a little bit off, it looks very weird and something very easy to pick up on. So definitely want to make time take the time to make sure the details in the face are accurate. So here we go. Here's the next clip. This is after I erased away the underdrawing, and now I'm going over the thin lines with this brush pen that I have. And this brush pen gives me the ability to draw either medium thick lines or very thick lines based on how much pressure I draw the pen with. And like I said, because the thin lines are outlining everything, I can kind of shift the lines just a little bit. Whether I outline the outside of the first line or maybe the inside of the first line, I can sort of make some elements slightly bigger or slightly smaller, depending on where I put the brush pen line. But here I start with just outlining everything. And basically the purpose of this style is the thick lines are used to create emphasis. I generally have the thickest line on the border surrounding the entire figure, and then I'll have other thick lines, for instance, where the football is, or his left hand that's in front of his body. That will have pretty thick line surrounding it to sort of separate the hand and the arm from his torso, because it is an object that's in front of his torso. There's a distance and a gap between his hand and his chest. And so that, the thicker the line is, can sort of represent distance. So here I'm doing the details in the face mask there again, kind of outlining the face mask to separate it from his face, because it is spatially in front of his face. And filling in a few areas where there's large shades of black, like the holes in the helmet, his eye black, and some things like that. Basically, after I've done with all the thick outlines, now I'm going in and adding extra thickness on areas where I think it's necessary. Like I said, sort of outlining the entire figure, making that border even more thick. And also being very careful, try to create a crisp edge on the outside of the line, just so it looks nice and crisp. And now I'm just doing a little bit of darkening some areas where the shading sort of flat black. And just filling in some dark areas inside the helmet where there wouldn't be very much light getting in there. And just filling in some areas where there's some shadows around his fingers. And like I said, the process is, first draw the thin lines, outline everything, then go over those lines to make some thicker and some thinner. And then after that, I basically go in and color in some dark areas where it's gonna be large areas of just black color. And then after I get done with this, I'm gonna bust out the pigment micron again, and then go in and do some areas of hatching and cross hatching. And here I use a different brush pen that I have. This one has more of a rigid tip so that it's a consistent line. The brush pen that I was using to outline everything, it's a very flexible tip. So based on how much pressure I put on it, I'll either get a thicker line or a thinner line. But for drawing the logo on the helmet, I just want a consistent line, because it's just a printed sticker in real life. So I want all the lines to be exactly the same thickness, so it looks like that. And like I said, now I've got the pigment micron out again, and I'm doing some hatching and cross hatching around areas where, in real life, not everything is just completely white or completely black. There's varying gradations of color, of shadows on things. So the point of hatching and cross hatching is to basically create more of a gray area where it's not completely black or completely white. It's just, darker than the paper, but not as dark. It's just filling it in completely black. And depending on, how far apart your lines are, how thick they are, whether it's hatching versus cross hatching, you can create a varying degree of tones just with those. So very versatile, very useful. And, that's why that's a technique that a lot of comic book artists use, because of how versatile it is and the cool effects that you can get. What I like about it is that it's not just completely photorealistic, and it's kind of a way of representing objects and representing surfaces, but you can tell it's a drawing. Like I said, it's not just completely photorealistic. And that's kind of the way art is. Way back in the day, the Middle Ages, the Renaissance, art was basically all about being photorealistic, and how good your skill was based on how accurate to life you could draw. And then when photography was invented in the 1800s, that really changed everything, because now all of a sudden you just take a photograph. Anyone who can click a button can take a photograph, and it's automatically photorealistic. So now, demand for photorealism wasn't that high, and art really took a turn ever since then. And style really became important, or representing things abstractly became a lot more popular. So, there's definitely a lot of artists, especially on YouTube, that do, photorealistic drawings, and, they've got a lot of skill. It's very impressive. But I kind of like this style because, there's just something about it. I just like it, the comic book style. I guess it's hard to explain, but, I just like representing, like I said, shapes and surfaces and textures with that style where it's you've only got black and white to work with for the line art, and but how can you represent shades of tonality with just black and white? And the hatching and the cross hatching and the various other shading techniques come into play there. And like I said, it's not like just using a black and white colored pencil where you just vary the pressure and the amount of color that goes onto the page will vary with your pressure. Because here you just got areas that are completely black or completely white, but the hatching and the cross hatching is sort of an optical illusion where if you get far enough away from what you're looking at, you can create those tones. And I think that's a really cool technique. I think it's just really cool how that works out. And that's the way I'm drawing now. Who knows, maybe my style will change as I progress on this YouTube journey. But for now, this is what I'm into. This is what I'm excited about. So this is the way that I foresee I'm going to be drawing for a while, at least here on YouTube. But yeah, and I'm just keep adding a few more details of the hatching, the cross hatching with the micron. Like I said, I'm using an 05 micron. Sometimes I'll use an 01 if I really need a fine line for something. But those are pretty much the 2 microns that I use. And so here's a sort of zoomed in shot of the final line art. We can kind of see all the details. And now we start the fun part where we get into color. So the markers that I use, they are alcohol markers, which basically the 2 main types of markers are water-based markers or washable markers, and then alcohol-based markers. And the main difference is that alcohol-based markers, they're very easy to blend. Basically, once you put the marker down, you can still go over it with another alcohol-based marker, and the second marker will kind of reactivate the ink and basically allow it to blend. So it's extremely useful for blending and things like that. Also, you can go over and over the same area multiple times and it won't really tear up the paper. And you'll basically be able to apply more and more ink to an area, and that'll basically get rid of streaks. With washable markers, you put them down and you get streaks, and then it's pretty much impossible to get rid of the streaks. So alcohol-based markers, though, if you put down your first layer, there's probably going to be streaks, but you can keep putting down multiple layers over that and really fill in a large area. Like for instance, that red part on his chest there. I'm putting down my first layer now. There probably is going to be some streaks, so I just keep going over and over again. Keep going over and over that area multiple times, and the streaks will pretty much go away, and it'll just be a flat color. So as you can see, I sort of outlined all of the fine areas with the fine tip of the marker. And these markers that I'm using, the brand's called Cali Art. I just picked them up on Amazon, and from what I hear, the industry standard for alcohol-based markers are Copic markers. It has like a fancy brush tip, and supposedly it's a really good marker. I've never used them because they're super expensive. It costs, I went to Michael's and it was like $8 per marker. And I think maybe if you buy a pack, it might be a little bit cheaper than that. But I mean, they're super expensive per marker. It's just ridiculous. And maybe perhaps they're worth it if you're a professional artist, if you're doing high-end work, maybe they're worth it. But if you're just starting out, I mean, there's no reason to ever spend that much money on markers when you're just starting out, because honestly, like I said, it's all about technique. It's all about your ability to the marker is just a tool. Having a fancy marker is not going to make your art better. And if you're really good, you can achieve great results with any basic tool. So, especially if you're starting out, just get the cheapest thing. Now, some of my older original drawings, I did use water-based, like washable markers that I just got for like $5. And like I said, there is a big difference between the alcohol-based and the water-based, because the water-based leaves a lot of streaks. So I do recommend getting alcohol-based markers, but these markers that I got, these Cali Art, I think it was about $45 for like 100 markers. So pretty reasonably priced, like 50 cents a marker. Like I said, the Copics, which are the industry standard, they're like $8 per marker. So way cheaper. And it's probably, 89% is good. At least it seems like it is. So if you're just starting out, if you're just doing this for fun, you can probably get away with just using cheap alcohol-based markers like that. And as you can see here, basically the way I'm doing it is I'm putting down a flat layer of color everywhere. Basically, every single area of color that I've chosen, I generally have 2 to 3 shades of that color that I'm going to be using. And one of the reasons why I liked the markers that I got is because it did come with 100 colors. Because I think it's better to have more colors and a slightly lower quality marker than to have super high quality markers and have like just the 6 basic colors of the rainbow or something like that. Because if you really want your stuff to look nice, having the subtle changes in colors I think is extremely important. So basically, I laid down a foundation of the red, the light gray for the pewter part, the skin tone, and the brown for the football, as well as the orange that's kind of around the numbers. And I just laid down, and now I'm using the lightest shade of gray that I have to lay out some of the white areas or the gray areas. And then I also am using a darker shade of gray as the foundation for all the black areas. So I'm just mapping out all of the flat areas. So I've got, the first layer of color on every single part of the drawing. And the first color that you put down should always be the lightest color, and that way you can go over it. You can always make it darker. With markers, it's not like paint. Paint, you put down some paint and you don't like it, you can always paint over it with a lighter shade, once it's dry. But with markers, you can only go darker. So it's always best to put down your lightest shade first, and if you don't like it, you can always go darker and darker and darker. But if you put down a dark shade, you can't go lighter. So here we go. I've got the darker shade of the red now, and basically I'm coloring 2 different areas. I'm coloring the areas of shadow, like for instance in his armpit, but then I'm also coloring in this sort of halo of shadow around the outside edges of everything, and that sort of creates like a backlit effect around his body, like there's a light source behind him. And especially for this style that I use, I think it adds level, makes it a lot more dramatic. It adds a level of drama that just makes the image pop a lot better, especially if it's like an action shot, like a sports athlete, football player. I think adding that extra drama, that extra action to it definitely helps out the drawing significantly. So that's why I kind of do that backlit effect, where the outside edge of everything is a little bit lighter than right next to the outside edge. And that area right next to the outside edge is, darker than the main area, like the main part of his chest, because in real life, there's going to be reflected light that hits like that main chest area. So that's actually going to be a little bit lighter than the edge of the shadow, where the shadow meets the light area on the outside edge of like his arm or his shoulders. So I'm doing that same part now with the pewter color. I have a warm gray color that I'm using, but there again, I'm leaving that outer halo of light around the edge of his helmet, acting as like a backlit effect. Like there's a light source directly behind him that's illuminating just the outer edge of his helmet and of his jersey and everything. And then you can see here with the pewter, as you can see, I'm going over this area multiple times, this gray area, because not so much with the red, but with the gray especially. Like I said, just putting that first layer down, it's very streaky. So that's one of the benefits of the alcohol-based markers, is that you can go over an area multiple times over and over and over again and get rid of those streaks. And it's extremely useful. And honestly, I've really only been using these alcohol-based markers for a few months now. Growing up as a kid, only ever just used water-based markers. So kind of learning as I go, but definitely like them a lot. They're very useful, very versatile. So I definitely recommend them over getting washable markers or water-based markers. Definitely go with the alcohol. They're super useful. So. And here I'm just sort of shading out all the dark areas, especially with the skin. I got a light skin tone and a dark skin tone. And same with the gray, just making the shadows a little bit darker with a shade of gray that's just slightly darker than the first shade that I put down. And same with the black parts. I put down sort of a medium gray first as my base. Now I'm putting another layer of slightly darker gray for the black areas. And just, slowly making those areas a little bit darker, more and more. I didn't want to just make these areas completely flat black, because they are kind of significant parts of the jersey, of the uniform. And then now I'm going in with a third layer of dark gray, so it's making it even more dark, but like I said, still not completely black. You can still see the details and still see the hatching and the cross hatching within that color. And but it's very close to black. It's very dark, but I like how the fact that it's not completely black, so you can still see some of the details. It's not just completely lost what's there, but it still looks like black. It still reads as black. When you look at it, obviously in real life, things that are black still have shading on them. They're not just completely flat black. So that sort of creates that effect there. And now I'm just adding the shading to the football and making that look a little bit darker on the bottom. And now what I'm doing is I'm coming in with the alcohol-based markers. If you take the lighter marker and come in and kind of scribble over top of where the darker part is, like I said, it kind of reactivates the darker part so that the ink kind of bleed a little bit. And then that's how you can achieve sort of gradations of shading. When I first put it down, the dark color and the lighter color just have a real sharp edge where they meet. But if I keep going over and over that edge where they meet with the lighter color, then it'll sort of blend the two colors into each other. So that's what I really like about these alcohol markers. You can have areas where you have a very sharp shadow, but you can also sort of blend them and smooth them out, so you have a gradation of color. So very versatile, very useful. Definitely recommend them. Washable markers, you cannot do that. Washable markers, you put it down and it's just there. It doesn't blend at all. So definitely alcohol-based markers all the way. They're super useful. They're great. Like I said, I've only been using them for a few months, but I can't recommend them enough. They're definitely well worth it. Like I said, you don't have to necessarily get the fanciest alcohol-based markers, but definitely you want to use alcohol-based markers over water-based. They're way, way better, without a doubt. And here I'm doing the same thing with the red, where I'm leaving the edge, that sort of rim highlight, I'm leaving that as a sharp contrast, but then I'm sort of blending the dark area in as it comes into the inside of the jersey. I'm blending it to the inside. The outside edge is still a sharp edge, but the inside I blend it in. And wherever there's like a shading, like where his arm touches his torso, that armpit area, I'm doing some shading there, sort of blending it. And like I said, to do that technique, you put down the first layer of the lighter color, then you put down the shadows with the darker color, and then you come back with the lighter color to sort of blend the edges together. So it's a pretty cool technique that sort of learned from other people on YouTube, and I definitely like it. I think it creates a really cool effect. So pretty much done with the markers now. Here I'm using a white gel pen. It's a Uniball gel pen that I got, and the benefit of this is that you can draw white over top of the color. But once you put it down, it's pretty much there. You can't draw with marker on top of the white gel pen. So you can fix a few mistakes, but you can only fix them to white. You can't color over top of an area and then add more color to that. So like I said, you can use it to fix mistakes slightly, but it's not like paint where you can just do whatever you want and add color on top of color on top of color. It's very limited on what you can correct. But it's cool because I use it to sort of add some rim highlights, some of the most extreme highlights. So here's the final product, as you can see in the zoomed in view. And yeah, just definitely enjoyed making this drawing. Let me know in the comments what you think about how it turned out. And if you have any questions about my drawing style, art in general, definitely leave a comment. If there's any specific video you'd be interested in seeing me make, just definitely let me know. Can't guarantee if I'll take every suggestion, but if you got a good idea, I'd definitely love to hear it. Subscribe